Welcome to Building the Future with your host, Kevin Horick. Get ready to explore the cutting edge of innovation and entrepreneurship. From startups to industry giants, we're bringing you the visionaries shaping tomorrow. With listeners in over 150 countries, we're one of the fastest growing shows worldwide. Join Kevin, a seasoned software designer and tech expert, as we dive into the ideas and inventions changing our world. Building the Future starts now.
Building the Future is brought to you by iClerk.ai. Are you a small business owner, a professional, or company looking to automate? Do you have difficulty hiring staff to perform mundane knowledge work like reporting, form creation, or information analysis? Leverage the power of AI and the automation of agents, even if you don't have the time or experience. Try us out with little risk and no upfront investment. It's time to work smarter, not harder. Visit iClerk.ai to learn more and get started today.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Colin Godby. He's the CEO and founder at Dustmoto. Colin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Kevin. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are building at Dust is actually really innovative and cool, but maybe before we dive into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, totally. I grew up in Southern California,
Okay.
right in the middle of kind of action sports heaven, close
Sure.
enough to the coast to be hitting the beach, skate sort of scene and BMX and surrounded by a motocross track. So uh, grew up really loving getting outdoors and not only the stick and ball sport side of things, but also kind of the action sport, alternative sport side of things. And yeah, I went to school in Santa Barbara and went to get my mechanical engineering degree to further my love of all things that go. And yeah, there's a bit of a focus on the automotive side of things as I was exiting school.
Okay, so because obviously like skateboarding and BMXing is kind of in the same range, but like how did you go or what got you passionate about the automotive side of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the story from my mom was that I have, my first toys were Hot Wheels,
Okay.
and I was racing those around the living room all the time. And as I got older, I did pick up an interest in just motorsports and watching car racing. And I had a dream of, I think probably the first thing that people when they'd ask what I wanted to be when I grew up was probably race car driver. And then that kind of transitioned into working within racing. So I was always a bit of a gearhead, interested in things that went fast, and that kind of expanded also into aerospace. Going to air shows and stuff like that. My dad was actually a pilot,
Oh, cool.
which I think kind of fed into that. But yeah, I think it was kind of side by side an interest in adrenaline fueled sports and also the machines that help you get there.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So walk us through getting into school, your career up, and then let's dive into Dust.
Yeah. I grew up being pretty analytical, I think math and science oriented from an early age. I didn't quite know where that would get me. My mom was, a full-time mom, and my dad was a pilot, military guy, and he was deployed for good chunks of our childhood to First Persian Gulf War and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Neither of them were really entrepreneurial in the traditional sense, actually starting businesses and using that for our paychecks. My mom was pretty entrepreneurial on kind of the DIY side of things.
Okay.
We had horses, and so running the property and random equipment and sort of our own products to help with that environment. Taught me to be kind of creative and a problem solver, but I didn't really understand engineering
Right.
through high school even. And so when I was going to get ready to go to college, I didn't quite know, like I didn't have a great understanding of the landscape of, the job market. And even in the sense of, late 90s, early 2000s, graduating high school, like software even wasn't like a core focus for me.
Yeah.
We had a
Interesting.
computer and first compact was probably 94. Like we were on the internet pretty early days. But I didn't really understand like sort of the business opportunity side of things and how to apply my skills. So I ended up getting a career day, session with one of our neighbors who is an engineer at a power plant company called Fluor. And I spent the day with him and I saw what other engineers are doing, developing the plant and working in CAD. And finally, it kind of clicked like, I like bikes, I like cars. Someone has to be designing these things, and it's the engineers. And it finally kind of connected. And that's what got me into engineering at Santa Barbara was making that connection. Like the products that I love around me, someone has to make the decision on what these look like, how they function, and some of the detailed engineering decisions as well. So yeah, it was kind of like always sporty and athletic, and grew up really analytical and achieving in math and science. And finally it connected at a later age, like, okay, this is what engineers do, and jumped in from there.
Okay, very cool. So walk us through your career and then coming up with the idea for Dust, and then let's dive into that.
Yeah. Um, Early in my career, coming out of Santa Barbara, I was able to get a job helping set up tests and do data analysis with a automotive crash reconstruction firm in Santa
Oh,
Barbara.
interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. So these are, they act as expert witnesses in these crash cases, but also sometimes even larger ones, like the the mid 90s had the Firestone tire blowout and Ford Explorer
Right.
rollover cases, and our firm actually played a role in that.
Oh,
That
wow.
was super interesting as an engineer because there's a lot of kind of technical learnings, data acquisition, setting up repeatable tests, gaining insights and helping inform, I would say, important legal cases. But it really told me pretty early that I wanted to be more on the design side of things. So
Okay.
I made a leap away from Santa Barbara down to Orange County, and specifically to get into design engineering. I wanted to design products and see them get built. And pretty early on, I actually had a bit of a false start with a company in the mountain bike industry. And it was a quick lesson early in the career of like, it doesn't matter if something bad happens or out of your control. What matters is how you bounce back.
Yeah.
And right out of that, I found a role that was at a company called Millenworks doing advanced product development for the vehicle industry, specifically around race cars, concept cars, military vehicles, and theme park rides.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that was kind of a dream for an engineer like me. It's a small
Totally.
shop where we had engineers over the top of the shop space, really quick turn. Like we make a 2D print and 3D file, and all of a sudden our parts are getting built that same day.
That's
Um,
cool.
so really, yeah, really cool, really fast iterative loop in learning, and also some uh, folks that were not afraid to tell you when you're doing the wrong thing in your design. So also an environment, a little bit of a pressure cooker environment, but also one that really empowered growth. Um, and that really kind of made it real for me in the sense of designing and working on vehicle systems. And it was also my first entry into electrification. So we had a few electrified vehicle projects, including some advanced military tech and consumer products. And so I was working on battery pack design and structure design and other stuff. And I also worked on the Radiator Springs Racers Cars Ride at the time,
That's cool.
which is in its own way an electric vehicle, more like a slot car. But so that was kind of the foundation of my engineering training and capabilities, was really high performance design and vehicle stuff. Um, but I saw I wanted more time and learning about other facets of product design, like consumer product, mass
Yeah.
production, plastic injection molded design, working with factories all over the world. And so I made the leap into consumer products, and that formed, I would say, the bulk of the middle of my career, was going from individual contributing engineer to building teams, and then working my way into product and strategy. And so I saw basically the whole life cycle of product development within these smaller startup kind of venture backed companies, focused mostly on hardware in my domain. Um, and that added kind of a new set of tools in my tool belt on top of kind of the vehicle design and development stuff. And so finally, towards the end of my stretch as an employee, I ended up coming back into the mobility space as chief product officer at a company called Ubco, doing electric motorbikes. And the company was based in New Zealand. And at the time, I was based in Seattle. So this was kind of full circle moment, back into two wheels and vehicle development, but now kind of mashing up all my skills around consumer products and vehicle design and high performance safety critical designs like in theme park rides, into helping shape the strategy and engineering of these products. And it was at that point that I'd always been entrepreneurial minded, a little bit hard to manage, I would say, as an employee, always wanting to have more ownership and responsibility, and really, I think, self-motivated, but also partnering that with a bit of risk indexing as an engineer. Like you're trained to be risk averse as an engineer, design
Sure.
all the risk out. And so that was kind of like at odds a little bit with the entrepreneurial, like I want to own this and do my own thing. Like, and so my career was, a lot of those decisions were made around, how do I equip myself to finally be ready to start a business? And it was kind of at that moment at Upco where it kind of was like, I have the full suite of skills needed and basis of experience in startup and entrepreneurialism, like learning from some of these great entrepreneurs, that I was finally like, okay, now's the time. And so I had worked with the two of my co-founders for Dust, Jarrett and Neil, at Upco. And as our time came to an end there, we decided like, hey, there's an opportunity that we found in working in this domain at Upco that we should go after. And so we basically left Upco having identified this gap in the market, but not being able to go after it within kind of the limitations of Upco.
Right.
And we went from there. This is May 2023, incorporating the company, so about 18 months ago, and yeah, and the rest is history.
No, fair enough. That's sweet. So how did you identify that market? Because I think that's the hardest part sometimes, is actually figuring out what product to build. And then walk us through, did you raise money? Or you self-funded? Walk us through that.
Yeah. I really believe in having confidence around the market, and being certain around people actually signing up with their own dollars. Like, I think a lot of companies run through these early phases with like a shiny idea, and they actually don't get it to the reality of the consumer until a bit too late. And it's like, yeah, everyone says this is awesome, but do people actually pay for it? That's like the big
Totally.
question, right? And so Upco, like, and honestly, that was shaped a bit by my time at a company called Sphero, making robot toys.
Okay.
One of the most famous things we built was the BB-8 droid when Force Awakens launched in 2015.
That's
And
cool.
it was the highest selling, basically highest grossing toy of the season. We sold over 1 million units.
Wow.
It was a massive hit. It drove that company from roughly 10 million in revenue up to 150 million in revenue in 1
Oh,
year.
wow. Wow.
And the subsequent decisions after that was like, let's keep this momentum rolling and build more products like this. And we weren't doing the best job of like making sure that the subsequent products were going to land, right? We hit like a Powers Law kind of like Black Swan type of event with the success of BB-8, and we kind of figured that's because we were good at developing product. And reality was, we just got lucky in that moment. And so with that deep lesson at Upco, my job and as chief product officer around strategy and developing a portfolio was really kind of, I would say, cynical to a certain extent, like seeing a lot of these mobility companies struggling or like boom bust cycles, building an amazing product and getting it to market, not selling. And so at Upco, I was really intentional about trying to sort the signal from the noise. There's this funny realization I had. At a certain point in my career, I subscribed to Fast Company and Inc. and stuff like that. And I would see like these people on the cover, like massive hype cycle. And then 18 months later, the joke is they're either in jail or their company's gone. Right.
Yep.
And while that's sort of anecdote, I think that there's some reality around kind of the startup cycle, which can cause this hype cycle to drive poor decision making. And so
yeah,
Upco was more about like, okay, let's be certain. Like, what are we seeing out here? What's real growth data versus what the hype and the investment is backing? This is kind of core micromobility era, shared, scooter and bike scene. It was also around the time that SPACs were really popular for hardware companies. And I had the, I think, benefit of seeing some of these trends and failure points happen. And so ultimately, we basically were connected with a lot of the startup scene founders. It's sort of a small community, sharing notes. I was also looking at real sales data, connecting with our dealers and distributors. And then kind of the final piece was just being a consumer and enthusiast myself,
Okay.
having that position of understanding. So, and a lot of people, the trope is like, if you build a product that solves a problem for yourself, then you can come at it and actually solve that problem. And as long as there's, another sort of 1,000 passionate customers that are like you, then you've got the starting point. And I think that was really kind of a key for us, is we really deeply understood the opportunity space as two-wheel and vehicle enthusiasts. We had a good connectivity to the industry working within it at UBCO.
Right.
And we had the benefit of kind of being post hype cycle for mobility. And so Dust, it was really about, where are people already spending money? It's a proven market. What are some of the macro dynamics around low cost product and high cost product? Are there any obvious gaps in this structure? And are there any aha moments in terms of the user experience? And ultimately, it was yes across all of those points. So the user, I'll kind of go backwards. The user experience part was not as core moto riders. We're sort of, human powered action sports enthusiasts and race cars rather than moto guys. And
interesting.
We had this aha moment jumping on electric bikes, where it was like, whoa, this removes a lot of the barrier of entry of a typical gas dirt bike in terms of learning curve and ownership and just ease of use.
Oh, okay. Why is that? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons. If you kind of can picture yourself in the shoes of someone learning how to ride for the first time on a gas bike, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Even if you've learned to drive a manual transmission in a car where you have throttle, brake, clutch with your feet and a steering wheel, on a dirt bike, you actually have a clutch in your hand, and you have a brake on the other hand, and a throttle on your hand, and it needs to steer.
Right.
And then on your feet, you have the gear lever, and you have a brake on your foot. So it's more control points split between your hands and your feet than on a car.
Right.
And it's a little bit like syncopated drumming. Like you could get into a standard, 4 on the floor drum beat pretty easy, but as soon as you need to start syncopating and like doing these funny things, it becomes hard. And so at the first rider experience, first contact with a dirt bike that's gas with a clutch, typically results in sort of like nervousness. You're kind of shaky, like you don't want to stall the bike. You also don't want to like let out the throttle too hard and like wheelie, because you heard your friends say like, oh dude, if you get in the power band, you'll end up on your back, and so you end up being like, and then it's loud and it's starting and it's like kind of overwhelming, right? And so now like first time learning a dirt bike is like, oh, I don't want to get hurt. And you see like friends, they'll pop the clutch and then whiskey throttle into the side of a trailer, and you're like, oh my God, what is happening? Electric doesn't have that. It is quiet, and you have and especially in our case, hand controls. So you don't need a clutch. You don't need to release a clutch. You don't need to worry about what gear you're in. You don't need to worry about your foot brake and your hand brake kind of being split. It's like a mountain bike with hand brakes, and it's just a throttle. And the throttle is so responsive, you can just really gently ease into it, and you could inch forward just to get the feel.
Right? I see.
And so the learning, like just getting to rolling, is 100x easier on an electric bike. And what ends up happening is you spend the 2 minutes to just start rolling your feet up on the pegs, and you get to that fun moment where it feels like flying in freedom really quickly.
Oh, interesting.
And a gas bike, it takes a lot longer to get to that feeling of freedom and flying because you're worried about all of the other stuff.
Right.
So that's one piece. The other piece is maintenance. So, cars, even though they're gas engines, they have amazingly easy kind of preventative maintenance cycles compared to a dirt bike. Dirt bike, you're changing air filters very frequently. You're doing, depending on if it's a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke, you're doing engine rebuilds pretty frequently. Like we're talking about 50 to 100 hours of use.
No way.
You're worried about fluids and oil and chain and tires and brakes and all this stuff. And so if you dive into the ownership experience, there's a lot going on. And you're coming from the software and design user experience and UI side. Like friction is like a key term, right?
Yeah.
And the dirt bike ownership experience is just heavy with friction.
Sure.
And so electric, it's a much simpler maintenance cycle. It's like a power tool, like you plug it in, keep it charged, like on your bicycle, just make sure that the chain's lubed and the tires are good and you're kind of ready to go. And then the final piece of the user experience kind of unlock is noise. So a lot of the gas bike riding opportunities have gone further and further from town because the noise and the emissions. And so as the suburban environment continues to get built out and the urban environment becomes more dense, people don't want these loud tracks nearby.
Right.
And so, but electric actually allows for like a backyard track without bothering your neighbors, or like single track in the woods that's adjacent to a community. So that's kind of like the big unlock for us is we got on these bikes and it just at a personal level clicked. It was like, okay, now I'm having fun and I'm riding like I can ride on my mountain bike, at a high level and just get into it more. So
right.
that was a big kind of important insight for us in terms of the market opportunity. And we kind of likened it to some of the action sports that have had these kind of inflection points in growth. Is like there's usually some technical innovation that really unlocks a mass user adoption opportunity. Mountain bikes, like good suspension and brakes, where now
Right.
everyone doesn't feel like you're going to instantly fall over the first rock you hit, right? Or the first steep hill you go down. You've got control. Skis, like really good side cut skis that can float
Right.
on top of powder. All of a sudden, anyone can have a powder day. It's like a magical experience unlock compared to the 80s on skis,
Yeah. Interesting.
So we saw that opportunity for sure. And then the other two, yeah, the where are things being sold? Obviously now,
Yeah.
dirt bikes have been sold perennially without any massive growth uptick, but also without any like massive fall off. Like
Okay.
it hasn't gone through like a hype cycle of like micro mobility where like within a 5-year period is like the biggest thing and then the worst thing. Like dirt bikes have been, roughly 10% of the population have contact with dirt bikes on a yearly basis, and it's kind of been consistent. And then the final kind of realization or understanding in the market opportunity was seeing a pretty massive gap in the performance middle market. There's a lot of action and noise in the market around low cost kind of overseas product, which was really driving a new user base. And then there was a lot of startup action in the Western countries in the US around super high performance. Like we got to build the hyper bike. But really no one was focusing on this pragmatic middle ground, kind of like the Dyson vacuum territory, which is good user experience, high performance, premium price, but not luxury price, right?
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
And so there's nothing in that space for the dirt bike. And so we said, okay, this is sort of blue ocean kind of white space territory that we can, really focus on brand building and the experience and performance in a meaningful way. So
No, that's really cool. And maybe this is a stupid question, but some of the like user improvements where it's easier to ride and drive, why hasn't some of that stuff come to the traditional gas powered bike? Is it because people don't want it? It's too complicated? What's the reason? Or
yeah,
reasons, I guess.
no, it's a really good question. And we've in the same kind of thought of technical innovation helping drive like mass adoption in some of these
Yeah.
other sports. It's not like gas dirt bikes haven't had technical innovations.
Yeah.
Like they're amazing machines now. Like what you can do on a dirt bike is amazing, but in the context of a standard user,
Okay.
all of those innovations are like basically much more than is needed.
I see.
Basically, the innovation has focused on higher and higher performance for a narrower and narrower kind of specialized audience.
Got it.
So like if the typical $10,000 450cc dirt bike that you can buy today, the average user, and this is an enthusiast user, is getting maybe 50% of the performance out of that bike. Like there is so
Okay.
much performance headroom on this bike that the innovation, it ends up being an arms race between these incumbents of like, okay, how can you get a bit more horsepower, a bit more speed, a bit better
I see.
suspension? And none of that has gone to the overall user experience
I see.
and unlocking kind of a bigger pool of customers. So that's the one thing I see.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
I think companies like Harley for over a decade now have been talking about their aging demographics and how they pull new users in. And Livewire is a spin out of Harley Davidson. Livewire is an electric motorcycle company, and it's publicly listed. And the reason they did that was to try to get more people into the sport, so that Harley, as a kind of parent company, essentially can continue to grow over time. So I think they've identified that a lot of the electric value proposition can help bring more riders in. But I think it I go to this a lot. It's sort of the innovator's dilemma kind of side of things, which is it's hard for these big incumbents that are doing well on sales and have this massive inertia in their sales channels and supply chain and all this stuff to sort of disrupt themselves, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into what your bikes actually do and kind of how they set themselves apart, and kind of how have you kind of taken this middle market, because like I think that's really important, right? So like obviously you covered it, but let's dive a little bit deeper into that and kind of exactly who
Mhm.
the bike is kind of for.
Yeah. So I think that acknowledgement that the white space opportunity was sort of in this performance middle market where the value equation, the way that I see value is performance over price. It's basically the optimization of that equation rather
Right.
than just price, right? So hitting that kind of optimized value point for a broader market shaped how we developed the bike itself. And one of the big observations that we had around the gas bike market is a lot of the bikes that were, I think, exciting or performed well ended up becoming quite big. And it's sort of like needing to package the motors and the larger suspension. The bikes got taller and heavier. And so now, that kind of like anxiety ridden new learning curve is like, I'm 5'7" and on a full size dirt bike, like I can't touch both toes on the ground. Like I have to have
I
one
see.
leg up off over the seat. And so that was like a very easy one for us. This middle market, we actually took it to heart on the sizing also. So we basically built a bit more compact geometry. The seat height's 2 inches shorter. The wheelbase is a couple inches shorter. And what this does is it creates what we believe is kind of this fine-tuned balance between fully capable on the performance side, but more approachable for a wider variety of sizes on riders. So
Got it.
it's not like I would say a small bike. It's still, for most people, it will feel like a full-size motorcycle, except for you just feel a little bit more kind of in control of it based on the sizing and the weight. Um, the other thing that we kind of have done differently is, um, the innovation is not, invention is not necessarily innovation, right? So our approach has never been like, we got to come to the table and have the absolute best technology around battery and motor and inverter, the core powertrain elements. But what we have said is we need to be at state of the art and using the best available approaches, kind of like a technologist is like, okay, what's the latest greatest proven methods to reach these goals.
Right.
And so that's different from a lot of these other startups. A lot of these other startups will say like, in order to differentiate ourselves and justify this investment and valuation, like we gotta like really innovate. And you enter this kind of doom loop of development for hardware, especially where it's more complex getting these brand new inventions over the line in a reliable way. and it takes longer and it costs more. And then you don't get to market in time, and then maybe the market's moved on. And so that's been another way that we're
Interesting.
trying to do this, is like, can we get to market quickly? And so ultimately this will have been a 2-year development cycle, and this will be a good segue into funding. But
Sure.
2-year development cycle, trying to use the best available technology that's proven, customized to our application, but not invented.
Right.
And I think this is a different approach than kind of the higher end bikes. And then the lower end bikes, I think they're kind of running commodity grade stuff. So reliability, user experience, and performance just isn't quite there. So we're trying to find that like balance between the right amount of development work to get a great recipe,
Yeah.
an integrated product without going too far. And that has informed our funding strategy, basically. From the gate, we're like, okay, this is going to be a $15 million deep tech development effort. We would have had to raise different type of funds, but we're taking a bit more of a pragmatic, like stepwise build.
Yeah.
So early days, we started with a bit of founder capital, enough to get us, a few months in, and kind of exploring the territory, building the pitch, and the overall kind of positioning of the product.
Yeah.
But then we opened up, I think, what was pretty unique. What we called Founders 50 was a crowd fund for the product.
Okay.
Pretty early, like we just had 2-dimensional renderings basically, and we wanted to test the market. Like we said, like, let's put money where the mouth is, let customers see if there's some backing. And we were able to sign up 50 people in about 24 hours.
Wow, congrats, man. That's a lot in that
Yeah,
short period of time, right?
yeah, to a monthly premium subscription model, which is super
Oh,
interesting,
interesting.
right? Like and this is kind of like our strategy: build in public, like show as much as possible about the journey of building a bike, as well as the business itself. So we said, look, if you jump on board, every month we'll have meetings with you all. We'll
Oh,
share
interesting.
updates. You can ask us questions. You can tell us what you really like and don't like. Um, we'll share videos and images and details about the process that we wouldn't share fully publicly, even though we still want to be more open than most brands. And in the sense of master classes, like maybe there's some learning here for you that can justify the monthly payment as value, $250 a month. Um, so a lot of the people that joined are entrepreneurs. Like we're kind of sharing notes to a degree. A lot of people are just super passionate about moto and have never had that access to the development program in a motorcycle. And a lot of people are also, just excited to be supporters of us as a founding team too. So it was a way of building momentum and proving traction early that then allowed us to raise further friends and family money to get the first phase of prototyping done.
Interesting. So, how did you come up with this approach? Because most companies wouldn't basically do it this way, right? I think it's actually I think it's actually really innovative and cool, and I kind of wish more companies would do it like that.
Yeah. Credit to the founding team. I think Neil and Jarrett were, it was out of necessity to a certain extent. We were gonna run out of money on just founder capital, and
Right.
the initial like sharing the deck around to the potential investors that we knew was like, this is awesome, but like we're not going to cut a check right now. Like, come back when you have more traction or more
I
progress on the
see.
design. And so sort of that forced a bit of creativity. One thing that I relayed actually from early in my career, one of my first personal projects that was substantial was actually a custom designed downhill mountain bike with a gearbox and electronic shifting that I did in like 2008, 2009. And when I did that, I was poking around the internet for information about bike design, because like I'm an engineer and I'm a mountain biker, but I still wanted to make sure I wasn't doing anything silly, right?
Right.
And I found that there was kind of nothing, no information shared. And so I was like, well, okay, well, I'm just going to share my learnings. And I posted up on some of the bike forums my design progress, and then the parts being made, and then finished bike and racing it. And I saw a lot of excitement and people following. And so that stuck in my brain for Dust. It was like, this, again, look around. Is there any information about how to build a motorcycle to a high level? And no, there's not.
Right. I
It's all
see.
behind closed doors, either trade
Interesting.
secret, or these are overseas companies, so American consumers just simply don't have the kind of access in a physical sense. So we were like, let's do that. It's kind of like Reddit AMA. It's kind of like Masterclass. It's kind of like, hey, there's an opportunity to just use our new kind of content driven, society
Yeah.
to grow the business. So it was kind of a mashup of all these thoughts, and say, how do we turn this into a value proposition for customers? So those people that signed on and took the risk early days, are getting the bike for half off. So like, there's
I
always
see.
going to be a little bit of a tipping to help them jump on and feel good about it, right? So yeah, that's how it came together.
No, that's actually really interesting. You probably get asked this a lot, but I'm sure people are thinking it. Is were you ever worried that somebody's going to basically take your idea and build it before you?
Yeah, for sure. But I think maybe this is a fault of our ego, or maybe just naivety. But our kind of belief around IP is, execution matters more than the good idea.
100%. I couldn't agree with
um,
you more.
and so we kind of, and it's kind of like, Elon and Tesla sort of opening up the patent portfolio, just saying like, hey, if you guys want at it, go for it. Um, we we were like, look, if we can move fast and use our real skill set that we've developed
Yeah.
in the trenches already, and develop and deliver in a way that we think we can, there's not many teams like us that will show up and
Yeah.
do it. And so there's going to be others that come and try. But if we nail community building and brand building, we kind of plant the flag so it's visible and people know we're going for this, and back it up with the technical capabilities and the business savvy. Like it, I kind of go back to this idea. It's like, you look around town and there's a variety of kind of business owners, right? Like
Yeah.
the mom and pop pizza shop and the corner gas station, and what makes successful versus not. And a lot of people say, oh, it's just, 9 startups out of 10 fail, and I think it's a little bit less random than that. It's like, you kind of have to back it up with service, with brand, with business ops, with a great product, and a sales channel, like whether that's a physical brick and mortar or like online. And I think most companies, especially doing something hard like a motorcycle,
Yeah.
they're going to have some serious missing elements to that equation. And so we said, if we can bring most of this with our team and our network, then we have a fighting chance to share as much as possible. Um, that being said, like, if we're successful, we know the in sort of this unique positioning, we know there'd be more. But that's
Sure.
also at the same time not to be overly confident. Like, we're not the only ones roughly in this size. We're
Right.
not the only ones delivering this performance. Like, it's just sort of that combination. It's like, there could be a great pizza restaurant over here that's doing Detroit style. It could be a great pizza restaurant over here
Yeah.
doing New York style. It's like, however you pull that together for your own unique offering is, I think, the difference for us.
No, that's actually really good advice. And you brought up something earlier that I think plays into this really well is like everybody thinks like a big company like Harley would just go in and like swallow you for lunch, but like it's actually really hard for them to actually pivot and change part of their business to like go after a new market. And they had to spin off a whole other company. And I don't know how successful they are or aren't. You could tell me, but like it's actually really hard for a big company. It's actually would be easier for them to buy you than it would be for them to try to put you out of business by developing a clone product. It's
Yeah,
which I think a lot of people don't realize. And then I think the other thing too is like it they're they're doing what's successful, right? Like them building a new product line in a new category is like a huge gamble for them. And like
yeah,
people don't think about like how complicated and how many issues that it causes a big company. And then to your point, it's like, well, there's a lot of pizza shops, right? Or there's a lot of burger joints, and there's a bunch of them that can be successful, right?
yeah, yeah. No,
And it's interesting.
I, it's totally true, and you kind of nailed the facets there. Like, maybe the most obvious example is, like, we've all been, or most of your listeners probably have been at a larger corporate environment, right?
Yeah.
And you've all been through that situation where it's like, okay, we've got this decision that we need to make to align teams. And you
Yeah.
go through like 5 different committees and you share the details and your pitch and proposal, it gets
Yeah.
morphed and a different team takes it on. And it's literally 9 months later before the decision is finally made.
Yeah.
And maybe the opportunities passed or the technology's changed. You go behind the scenes at Dust and it's like, what do we need to do? And we turn our chairs to each other and we say, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
And we make the decision instantly, right? Like
Yeah.
that is, you cannot underestimate the importance of like speed in that context.
Yeah.
And like, and that trickles down to the supply chain where if Honda is going to make a bet, they own their engine factories, right? Like, and so what do they do with that staff that's making combustion engines, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, now we've got to build HR plans to either retrain or fire. Like these things do not happen quickly. And then you stack that on, and like the last 3 years have been quite painful in the stock market for
Yeah.
most EV brands.
Sure.
And these are big public companies. And the last thing that their shareholders want is them to take a flyer on a new segment that isn't proven. They're like, no, I want you to go and make profit because that's how we're going to grow this stock price. They don't want you to take big risks on something that has already been hammered, in the greater market. So,
No, that's really good advice. So I want to dive a little bit deeper. You kind of touched on it a few minutes ago, but so did you manufacture all your new components? Did you buy some off the shelf? How did you actually like put this thing together and kind of start with this kind of first bike?
yeah. So one of the kind of initial principles that we wanted to operate within, and it's similar to sort of the view on innovation or kind of technology development, was use what's proven and solid and available as much as possible.
Okay.
It's kind of like that traditional make versus buy discussion. And
Yeah.
I saw someone recently post online that a way that I liked it is like, hey, if you're starting a beer company, like the things you should focus on building yourselves or like going deep on and innovating are the things that make the beer taste better. Like
Yeah.
don't go crazy on things that might like help you, like don't build your own customer service platform to help people return their packaging or whatever. Like literally like just focus on the thing that makes your core product better. And so we took that view. It's like we're not going to level up the game in pegs and wheels and brakes and these things that are out there and proven and available and mass produced. And then we kind of took that a step further on our first prototypes, which was what lessons do we need to learn right now?
Sure.
And at that point, their first alpha prototypes, could be called kind of proof of concept prototypes. Is this experience fun? The weight, the size, the ergonomics, it's different than other bikes out there. Like, are we building a recipe that actually delivers smiles? And so we didn't want to build all of our own powertrain components at that point. We knew that eventually we would be customizing that stuff because
Sure.
we'd have some different performance targets, but let's not even try to do that work now. Let's get a prototype built as fast as possible. And so the initial prototypes, we did our custom chassis development and frame and kind of ergonomic, kind of the plastics and all that. But then we sourced off the shelf stuff as like a powertrain mule.
Right.
And that let us learn really quickly, like before we were even 9 months in on the business, like from founding, we had a functional proof of concept prototype.
Which is crazy fast, especially in a physical product space.
Yeah,
That's
we
fast in
were,
software.
yeah. And what was interesting, it kind of goes back to our build in public methodology and mentality was most people would hide that prototype
Yeah.
because it's like pretty rough, right?
Sure.
Stuff's going to break. It's going to, look funny in some ways. But we said, let's just own it. Like if we're really trying to share this journey, there's the good and the bad. And
Yeah.
so we got that bike under content creators and athletes. And we're sharing some of the testing and failures and what we're learning. And so it was kind of dual purpose. Like it taught us a lot about the product itself and what we were going to need to change for the next phase of development. But it also allowed us to continue to develop our following. And by the time we we're showing our first prototype is like we had 15,000 plus followers
Ah,
on social media because they're like, what's next? Like what's next in
yeah.
the story? So it definitely was beneficial in that sense. Was just, yeah, it's rough and ready, but you gotta get those learnings early.
Interesting. No, that I think that's actually really good advice. I'm curious though, how did you get some of those athletes and followers to, or influencers, sorry, to actually
Mhm.
try the product out? Was it just connections you had, or how did you go about getting that?
Yeah. So I think one interesting thing about the creator economy is they need to tell stories, right?
Yeah, they need new
Um,
content.
that's right. They need new content. They need to keep the flywheel running, and especially in something like dirt biking, there's not a lot of new news,
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
and
Interesting.
so that was like we were able to just um, well, I'll be like super open. Like more than half of that was actually outreach to us.
Oh,
um,
wow. Well, that's
so
awesome.
yeah, so it's awesome. Is like people saw what we're doing and just organically building, and they're like, "Hey, dude, like we'd love to ride this thing." And or I'm gonna be in town around Bend, Oregon, and like, hey, can I jump on it? And we were just open with a lot of that, and so that was really also just a nice indicator that we're on the right path. Is these people that we were excited about and respected actually were reaching out to us, and then the other side was because of that, actual sort of business nature of these content creators needing. We were also able to do a bit of outreach and schedule
Right.
stuff, but
Yeah.
one of
All
the
you need
things
is
we
one probably, right? And then it kind
yeah,
of dominoes.
there's a little bit of FOMO, right? Like
Yeah.
if you think about let's say off-grid home building, like this is a whole cottage segment of content creators. If one big channel picks up on some new thing that's like really interesting and lands well, then everyone's going to try to get that, right?
Yeah.
And so that, to exactly to your point, you just need one and then it kind of spreads. The other thing that we did there that was super interesting was like at the same time, we were using our proof of concept bikes to help raise the next kind of round of funding.
Right.
And so this is like us as founders with, at this time, a U-Haul trailer, the bikes in the back, going to meet investors, and then sort of planning ahead if any athletes or content creators are in the same area. And
Smart.
like, we're like, hey, we're going to be in town. Like, let's do something. And we just, didn't want to waste the gas money.
No, that's actually really good advice. I'm curious though, how connected to the internet is the bike or not? Like, do I get software updates? Does it have a little screen? Does it mount my phone? Walk us through that.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and candidly, we're locking down all of the total functionality on the connected stack. Um, when we were at Upco, we basically developed what we called the intelligent platform for mobility there, and it was we did it internally, quite a lift, but we basically developed the hardware, the bare metal software, and the front and back end software
That's a lot.
on bike, on app, and cloud. So we
Oh, wow.
basically had the full data stream, allowing us to do over-the-air updates, allowing us to do a nice mobile app, allowing us to do a diagnostics and service web app, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we never actually got to fully deliver that, to be honest. But so we see the value. Like in my time at Ubco, especially, that platform was one of the main value props for kind of greater mobility. I think specifically right now we're in the middle of the decision making, which is like this is a little bit more kind of niche and riding experience oriented,
Yeah.
and we're having to make this make versus buy decision right now around like, do we go fully deep and how much of that adds value to like why people are actually buying this bike. I think people are buying the bike because they want to pull some wheelies and ride with friends. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're buying the bike simply because it's connected. That being said, leveling up the HMI or the human machine interface, so the display, it's gonna be a nice color display, fully CAN connected, all of the data to the bike, rider modes, forward, reverse, slow mode, fast mode, all that stuff is enabled.
Right.
Um, we're developing the code on our control system to allow for kind of advanced state machines, whether it's for fault handling or shut down and turn on and shut down, or rider mode capabilities like traction control.
Right.
And so this final decision point now is integrating the IoT stack and going into building out the kind of app side of things.
Right.
It's not a huge lift, but we're a super lean team, so we're trying to make the right call.
No, it makes total sense. I think a lot of people like are almost it seems to be like more and more people are don't want it to be as connected or like not connected at all, which which makes like I can make the argument, like I can understand the argument both ways. And yeah, like it's interesting how many people are just like, nope, I'd rather just like I want to hit a button. I don't want to go through like, a few screens to hit that same button.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And like if we as consumers reflect back on like how frustrating it is for an app update to kind of
Yeah.
make your phone slower, or have a doom loop of crashing, like imagine if that app update like made it so you couldn't ride your bike on the 2 hour window, the 1 2 hour window
Yeah.
you had on the weekend, and all of a sudden it does, like that's
Yeah,
really
that
bad.
sucks. It's
And
like you
so
have to wait 30 minutes before you could go
yeah.
for a ride, and I had an hour.
Exactly. So we also don't want to go there. And I think what you said is there is that magical point of where the experience feels transparent, right? Like
Yeah.
technology is great to the point where it feels like magic and it's transparent and like it does everything you'd wish it would do without you actually perceiving it.
Yeah.
And this is kind of, one of the competitors in the space, Stark, actually is treading. They're kind of like the icebreaker in this sense. Like they have their display is actually an Android phone,
Okay.
which is a really interesting, novel way of doing it. Kind of get the consumer hardware costs down by using off the shelf type of
Yeah.
high compute power and memory storage and all that stuff. But I've been burned a little. Like I have we've had a couple EVs now at home in the driveway, and I won't name names, but you get so excited, but then all of a sudden, like, wait, this thing doesn't do the thing that it like a standard car does.
Yeah.
Yet I have to wait 6 months for them to update it so I can move my seat in a certain direction or whatever, like, and that's the risk. We don't want to do that.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. So I'm curious, what's the cost and when could potentially people start actually getting one?
Mhm. Yeah, so we have pre-orders open on our website. The retail price is $10,950. Pricing is kind of on the premium end, but working to stay within the construct of also the gas bike market.
Right.
And we're actively working through our engineering validation phase right now with prototypes and working to ramp production a bit later this year. So the idea is that we're starting to ship pre-order bikes by the end of the year.
Very cool. We're kind of coming to the end of the show, so how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself,
Mhm.
Dust, and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, folks are interested. We've got a updated website that shows sort of the production intent design and gives more info on pre-order at www.dustmoto.com. Our social channel is probably where we're most active, at dust.moto. And actually, if you want to go a layer deeper, we've got a pretty fat stack of newsletters that we've shared and kind of go into the industry as well as our design. And you can sign up to that newsletter on our website as well. So yeah, excited to have more folks follow on the journey.
Perfect, Colin. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and have a good rest of your day.
Oh, yeah, awesome. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, same here. Okay, bye.
For more episodes, you can find us on all major podcasting platforms or visit IamBuildingTheFuture.com. Join us next time and keep building the future.